There are two types of systems of work in the world, and they have very different rules. Now, depending on which one you're in, you're either working really hard for little pay, or you could be making great money doing what you love to do. You get to choose which system that you're going to live in, and today, I'm going to show you how. Let's dive in. Welcome to Success Sundays with Harrison. I'm your host, Harrison Wilder. I'm a corporate strategist and entrepreneur with an executive MBA from the George Washington University. I've managed two multi-million-dollar companies, and I advise top-level executives from a variety of industries. In this show, you'll find practical insights that will help you succeed as a leader in today's business environment. If you're serious about developing your skills as an executive, this is the place for you. Enjoy today's episode. There are two systems of work in the world. Most people have been raised inside what I call the factory system. These workers clock in and clock out. The rules in this system are pretty simple. The bell rings when it's time for work to start and end. Your compensation and rewards are based almost entirely on the amount of time and effort that you put in. And the merit of your work is judged by managers. The managers themselves are not too much different, but they have a little more knowledge or training in the systems that govern the factory where you work. And for that responsibility, they get compensated a little bit more. The factory system, of course, now applies far beyond traditional factories, even if that's where it started, extending into almost every working sector of the world. It's the system that most people who work jobs find themselves in. They're trading time and effort for money. And the demand for these types of workers is massive. It's huge. You can see how our entire educational system was built to crank out these kinds of workers, even down to the bell that rings when it's time for school to start and end, and how the merit of work is determined by teachers or managers. The reality is that you've been trained to work inside of the factory system since you were in preschool. It's all been designed that way. The main problem for you with the factory system is that the only ethical way to make more money is to put in additional time and effort. And then maybe you'll get paid a premium for figuring out how to please your managers. You might work your whole life and only scrounge up enough money to provide for yourself in a meager retirement. But by then, you've given most all the time you have, 30 to 40 of the best working years of your life, working 8 to 10 hours a day. Even as a manager in the system, you'll be fortunate to pull out a six-figure salary. Now, I'm not suggesting that you rebel against the factory system. That rarely works. It's usually the best practice to understand how a system works and play it to your advantage. But in this case, there is an even better alternative. You can leave the system altogether. Fortunately, there's another system with its own set of rules. And most people who have become truly financially free have built their wealth inside of this system. I call it the value system. In the value system, time and effort are just sideshows. Compensation and rewards are based almost entirely on the value that you bring to others. The only scorecard is money, and the potential is limitless. The more value you can create for others, the more money that you can generate. Managers don't determine the merit of your work, the market does. And the market will reward you for the value that you bring to it. The only ethical way to amass great wealth in this system is to generate massive amounts of value. Now, doesn't that sound better? Can you see how the value system has its own set of rules? Wouldn't you prefer the value system over the factory system? Well, here's the good news. You can switch systems today. Now, I'm not saying that you need to leave your job just yet. Stick with me. But I am saying that it's time to move yourself out of the factory system and the mentality that comes with it and into the system and mentality where value is rewarded without limits. And you can start today by simply following these 4 steps. Step 1, begin to see yourself as a business. If a factory worker trades hours for dollars, a value worker trades value for dollars. I know this because I worked my first job as a busboy at Sambino's Italian restaurant. I clocked in and out, worked my butt off, and collected $4.25 per hour. I hope to make enough money to put gas in my car each week and take my friends to McDonald's on the weekend. That was the extent of my relationship with my employer. And maybe you can relate to this mentality. You're just working your job each day to make enough money to pay your bills and enjoy a little bit of life before you go back and do it all over again the next day. The funny thing is that a year later, I was still in the restaurant industry. Now I was working for this large restaurant chain. Now, I was simply doing a lot of the same activity. I was still getting paid the same amount, but I was no longer a factory worker. I had stepped into the value system. I saw my work differently. I started acquiring new skills. I studied the managers. I studied the way that the restaurant operated, started taking on more responsibility and making myself more indispensable to my employers. I even started exploring my own strengths and gifts and looking for ways to apply them at my job. Before long, I was on a path to becoming a general manager of my own restaurant, a path that I abandoned when I went into ministry. But it illustrates the point that the first step to operating in the value system is to change your mentality about work. You can have the exact same job, but see yourself as your own business with your own unique skills and offerings. Your employer simply becomes the first customer of your business. I still use management and operational skills that I acquired from that short season in the restaurant industry to serve our clients to this day. Rich Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, he says that the only reason that you should ever decide to work for someone else is to acquire skills that you need for your own business. Stop trading hours for dollars and start seeing yourself as your own business. Now, here's step number 2 is to understand your own value proposition. Now that you are the employee of your own business, you need to understand your business's value proposition. I guarantee you, if you look around at the people being paid more than you, it's not because they are putting in more hours or more effort than you. I mean, how many of you could point to people around you that are working a lot less hours, or a lot less stressed, or doing less, but they're getting paid more? Well, there's a reason for that. They flipped the switch from the factory to value. They're no longer being paid for their hours or effort, but for the value that they are bringing to the company. But it's not just that they bring a lot of value, it's that they are aware of the value that they bring. You could be showing up every day, bringing so much value to your employer, but if you're not aware of that, you're never going to command much income. So let me ask you, what do you really do for your employer? Or let's call him your number one customer. Not your job title, not what they say you're supposed to do. What is it that you actually do that adds value to the bottom line? Do you bring in new business? Do you keep up company morale? Do you make sure that everything runs smoothly? Are you a strategic thinker? What are your unique skills and gifts, and how are they put to use? In order to switch over into the value system, you need to become keenly aware of your value. Now, here's step number 3, is to get some new offerings for your business. What if what you do for your employer or your number one customer is not all that valuable? Well, that's okay. It just means that it's time to get some new skills and offerings for your business. If you're in business for yourself and no one wants to pay a lot of money for what it is that you do, then you got to find some new things that you can do. You need to find a more valuable offering and bring that to the marketplace. It's the same thing even if you're working inside of a job right now. Don't limit yourself to your current role. Improve your skills. Look for opportunities to add more value and ways to absorb more responsibility. Increase your value proposition. How could you become more valuable to your customer so that you can charge them more money and that they're happy to pay it? There's a strong biblical principle that advises us to look what is already in our hand when considering our own value. When Moses questioned whether he could lead the Israelites out of Egypt, God asked him, "What do you have in your hand?" When the Shunammite woman asked Elijah for his help, he responds, "What do you have in your house?" Now, this woman was in a lot of pain. She needed a miracle. Her husband had died, and her sons were about to be sold into slavery if she didn't pay off this debt that she had. So she ran up to the prophet Elijah and begged him for help. But Elijah responds to the woman, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, "Help you? Who am I for you to ask? How can I help you?" Then he asks her, "What do you have in your house?" Notice he's shifting the responsibility. He's basically telling her, "Who are you to put your responsibility on me? Who are you to take your life and financial responsibility and the mistakes you've made, being broke as a joke, over 40, and in this train wreck, who are you to say you have to help me?" Isn't this how many people approach their employers, though, when they're looking for a raise? My family is growing, my rent's growing up, I'm not making enough to make the ends meet, much less, prepare for the future, and I need a raise. The factory workers, they plead for an increase to their hourly wage. But when you're in business for yourself, you see things differently. Like the widow in this story, you're challenged to take on a new level of personal responsibility. Elisha says, "What do you have in your house?" The Shunammite woman replies, "Only a little bit of oil." That could be relatable. That's kind of like you and me thinking, I don't know, I think I have a little bit of talent or a little bit of value. But that's all Elisha needed for her to have a little bit. Can you see how Elisha is shifting this woman's perspective? First, he directs her to see what she already has. Then he directs her to look beyond herself to outside resources that she could access. He says to her, go to all your neighbors, go to all those around you, go borrow, go hit up your mom, go hit up your grandma, right? Even your aunt, every single person in your community, and go borrow. Then the miracle will take place. As a business owner, you not only consider your internal assets, but you look outside to other resources that you can have access to. What other skills could I acquire? Who else could I bring on my team? What do I need to borrow to develop my offerings? In the Shunammite woman's case, she borrowed containers that could hold and transport her oil. Then with a little touch of God's miraculous power, she had almost everything she needed to build a thriving business. There was, however, one more thing. And step number 4 is we've got to find more clients for our business. Elisha's final instruction is the most practical of all. He says, from the proceeds of the oil, from the miracle, go sell. Who knew that the Bible had the word sell inside of it? Once you've discovered your own value proposition and you've increased it by acquiring and borrowing from others, it's time to take your business to the market. This could be as simple as looking for more opportunity to add value inside of your place of employment. Many places of work are happy to give you opportunities for advancement and to compensate you for the added value. But unfortunately, some companies are so entrenched in the factory system that there's simply no opportunity to grow your business as an employee. In this case, it may be time to take your business elsewhere and to seek out new clients for your offer. Either way, at some point, you'll be confronted with the reality that every business must accept. In order to grow your income, you must sell. So who out there is ready to leave the factory system for good? When you step into the value system, this is so cool. There's no limit to the wealth that you can attract, the income that you can command, and the impact that you can make on the world around you. Here's a success challenge for this week. Whatever your work or wherever you work, ask yourself, what additional value could I add to this organization? Go out and start doing it. Don't even ask to be paid more yet. Just watch your own mentality as you shift to change it so that you become your own business. If you have any questions for me that I might be able to help you with on a future episode, post them down in the comments. We love to hear from you. We love to create content that's super helpful and relevant for you. So put them in the comments and my team is going to tee those up for me for future episodes. Until then, have a great week and I'll see you in the next episode. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Great businesses and great leaders are built using effective communication. For more, go to speakingschool.com, grab my Elite Business Success Toolkit for free just for trying out our Speaking School membership. That's speakingschool.com. See you next time.